What is up, guys? Today we are going to look at Mono Black Devotion. There's a couple reasons why. Number one is because it is the deck that I played for Game Day this past weekend. And number two is because it is the deck that won GP Louisville. Had 3 people make the top 8 with the exact same deck list, which is pretty cool. This video will be maybe it'll be a little long, fairly long, I guess, 15 minutes, and it'll be a deck tech video. But before I go on, let me talk about my game day experience this weekend. So I took my game day, but it was very small, like only 8 or 9 people showed up. And as you know, I've been testing red, white, black for forever since, right? So I woke up Saturday morning, and before I left my house, I looked at my red, white, black, and all week I've been playtesting, and Esper is a very tough matchup for that deck. Game 1, a lot of control decks are very difficult to beat with the red, white, black, especially the way I had it geared in the main board. Sure, in post sideboard games I could change it into my advantage, but the deck has a weird mana base. There's just so many things going on. It's like, the problem with playing so much quality cards is you lack consistency. And I just didn't feel comfortable because I expected a lot of Esper decks. I expected mono blue. I expected I don't know. I'm not really sure what I expected, but I just didn't think that red, white, black matched up well, especially in the control matchup. Mono black, however, did match up fairly well. I looked at the top 8 list from the Pro Tour Theros. I forgot his name, Shota Yasoka, I think. I don't know. Somebody did pretty well with the mono black list. So I took that mono black list, made a few changes, and that's what I played at game day. Obviously, I read as it turns out, I read my meta completely wrong, as most of the decks were red deck wins, white weenie, or like green white aggro, and no control decks to be found at all. That said, I got very lucky in a lot of games, and I was able to come away with a game day victory, or actually split the victory with a friend of mine. And this deck that I'm about to show you right now is what I played. Sans a couple other choices. First and foremost, I'd just like to say that the deck is very good against mono blue devotion. It's very good against red, green aggressive mid-range strategies, and it's very good against control. However, in my experience, it's very poor against red deck wins, especially red deck wins, and it's like maybe less than a 50-50 matchup against other like hyper aggressive decks like Boros or white, mono white aggro. Okay. That said, so after Saturday, even though I won, I really didn't feel strongly about the deck, and I was going to break apart the deck. But then, 2 days later, the Star City Games guys like Todd Anderson, Brian Bronduin, and what's his name, Brad Nelson, they took a mono black deck, which is very similar to what I played. I'm not going to say that they took it from me because clearly they didn't. They took a mono black deck, and all 3 placed in the top 8, and then Brian Bronduin ended up winning it. So what I've done is I've taken that list, which is a lot closer to what I would have played anyway for game day, with the changes that I would have made anyway. And I've edited a couple of other cards, and I'll go over the whole deck right now. So this is mono black devotion, and basically the idea here is to disrupt in the early game so that you can play things like Desecration Demon or whatever. You just want some black permanents on the board, and you hit them with a Gray Merchant of Asphodel, which has devotion, and it's pretty much a drain life. And then you just kind of grind out advantage with card advantage or underworld connections and Packrat and things like of that nature. And yeah, you can really get a huge card advantage and pretty much sustain yourself with Gray Merchant. So and Whip of Eribos. So mono black. Let's go through the cards. My land base is 25 lands. For the actual game day, I played 26 lands. And I was happy with 26 lands, except there were a couple games where I did get flooded with land, but that's Magic. So we got 17 Swamps here, 3 Temple of Deceit, The blue mana is not necessary, but the scry is very nice. Uh, in the For game day, I played 4 of the white one, 4 of the Temple of Silence, um, and I always like to see it. For this one, we're gonna only play 3 because we want to always be able to play the cards that we need to play. And then we'll finish it off with 4 Mutavaults and 1 Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. Mutavault's very good for this deck. It's a threat against control. It can be a blocker, even though you probably will never do that. But one thing that it really does well, and I didn't really realize this until I saw the Star City Games guys do it, is it counts as a rat when you have Packrat out and you activate it. So you can really, once you have multiple copies of Packrat out and then you activate a Mutavault, the bonuses are, exponential. The growth is just way bigger. So I like that. I like Mutavaults. They played 3. I still believe 4 is the way to go. And 1 Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, which for me didn't really do a lot of work. And I don't know how it did for those guys, but it's still a nice option for a very late game. In order to get true use out of this, you have to have at least 4 devotion on the board. Because if you have 3 black source or 3 devotion on the board, then you're just making the same amount of mana by tapping out for 3. On the contrary, if you have 4 mana, then you're getting 1 plus 1, and of course past that, you're getting a much bigger advantage. Moving on to the cards that we have, the only 1-drop in the main board is Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is the king of all cards. There's only one matchup where I would ever take him out, and that is against red deck wins, because life is too important of a resource in that matchup to discard to pay 2 and just to get a card out of their hand. Even though it's proactive removal against red, you really need every point of life against red deck wins. So I do not play this against RDW. I side it out, but against everything else, it's great. I mean, you take out the things you can't answer, like artifacts or planeswalkers or whatever. Maybe gods or whatever, Thassa. It's just very effective, and as long as they got cards in their hand that aren't land, you're winning, man. So I like that. At the 2-drop spot, we have a bunch of removal. We have 2 Devour Flesh, 2 Doomblade, and 2 Ultimate Price. And basically, you're just adding this variety here to kind of cover your bases. Devour Flesh is good against Blood Baron and things like that, but it's also just good as an instant speed answer to like big singular threats like Pelucranos or whatever. You know what I mean? It's a nice little, or even to a god. But chances are, if they have a god activated, they probably have some, in order to get the devotion, they probably have some creatures on, right? So, but he's good against Blood Baron, Obzadot, good card. 2 Doomblade. Doomblade's really good in the format. Kills a lot of shit, but there's a lot of shit that it doesn't kill, and that's why we're only playing 2 in the main, and we have 2 more in the side. Ultimate Price is, now this might be the perfect time for Ultimate Price to come out. We got targets out there like all the green stuff, Stormbreath Dragon, Desecration Demons in the mirror. It doesn't have, there's no limit. I mean, it has a bunch of targets, you know what I mean? So it's a good card. It's a nice card to try. And we have 4, at the 3-drop spot, we have 4 Heroes Downfall. This is probably the best removal in black. Even though it's 3 mana, destroys target creature or planeswalker, you want that kind of utility. Instant speed, kills Obzadot. It's an awesome card. I've never sided out. We also have 4 Underworld connections, and this may seem a little weird, but the connections are important because they give you 2 devotion, and they're just an integral part of the deck for building card advantage and card draw. The other 3-drop we have is Ninth Veil Specter, and we're playing 4. At game day, I played the 4 Specters in the sideboard, and I played 4 Lifebane Zombies main. And I actually didn't like it, even against the green and white decks. The reason was I always wanted Specter. There was no matchup where I really didn't want him in there. He's a better blocker than Lifebane Zombie, and he's evasive. So, I like what Brian or the SCG guys did, Star City Games guys did, by putting him in the main and Lifebane in the side. And I've gone ahead and made that same kind of change for this deck. Oh, I missed this 2-drop here. The 2-drop here is Packrat. I played Packrat. Thought this is probably one of the best cards in the deck, to be honest. The cool thing about it is, like, I mean, obviously, you're discarding a card, but it's a good mana sink late in the rounds, and it's also good in game ones when you have a lot of dead cards. Like, especially when you're drawing like your 6th, 7th, 8th land, you might not need all that mana. So it's a good outlet for removing those cards and getting value out of them. And like I said, with combination with Mutavault, you can really build a formidable army quick. So it's a very good card, very good against control. I have an extra copy in the sideboard, and I bring it in for that. Moving on to the more of the end game items here. We got 2 Whip of Eribos, which is there to give us that lifelink, to give us reach, and to give us recursion. So pretty self-explanatory there. 4 Desecration Demons. Like I said, I know we talked about how this is my pet card, pretty much one of my pet cards. But it's strong. Some people say it's not good against control. I don't buy it. I think it's a great card, especially in this format with no Lingering Souls, fucking no Doom Traveler. I mean, we still got voice, but whatever. I'll take the risk of having this guy kill people more than hitting being tapped down by a voice or some elves or some shit. We have an Eribos, God of the Dead. Now, if you play Mono Blue Devotion, you realize how important integral something like Thassa is to that game plan, because you want to go turn 1 creature, turn 2 creature, turn 3 Thassa or creature, and then turn 4 Thassa or creature, right? So, and then, you want Thassa to hit the Devotion so it can attack for 5, and he always provides a value of Scry. Erebos is not as good as that. First of all, he's 4 mana, which affects that, and second of all, our early game doesn't revolve around putting threats on the board. Okay, our early game is disruption and removal. What he does do well is he prevents people from, giving them that life buffer with Sphinx's Revelation, or like shuts down a Blood Baron, shuts down opposing whips, and that's the best part of him. That's the most important part. And lastly, we got Eribos. Like for this guy, I actually side him out in most of the games, especially at game day. Like against the aggressive matchups, I never wanted to see this card. It just doesn't do anything on turn 4, at least not for me. Against control, though, he was great, because not only was I shutting down their life, I was forcing them to play around them. Like, obviously, they don't want to give me that fucking 5 devotion. But what's better is that I have a mana sink for end of turn to draw a card. It's just like really powerful engine. I don't know. I think 1 copy is like the right amount in the 75. I don't know if I want any. Maybe it's not main board material, but I'm gonna go ahead and continue to keep him there. And lastly, we have Grey Merchant of Asphodel, the 5-drop, and like I said, this is a common. And basically, he's your drain life. When you have underworld connections on the board and a Nightville Specter, you drop this guy, and then you're at all of a sudden you're draining your opponent for 7 life. He's not the game ender, but he's a good way to like stall out a board state so that you can draw into more shit. And I like him. We'll touch real quickly on the sideboard before we close this video. Like I said, we got Devour Flesh and Doomblades, and the Lifebane Zombies. So those were all pretty self-explanatory, right? We have 1 Pithing Needle to shut down underworld connections, to shut down gods, shut down equipment, shut down planeswalkers. It's got shut down Aetherlings. Got a lot of uses. I may want to put 2, but I'm kind of just going with 1 right now. And then 3 Duress to deal with control, pretty much primarily only for the control matchup. And then 3 Farika's Cure for aggro, for very aggressive, like red deck wins, white wins. I found that red deck wins really the hardest matchup. And if we can side in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 cards against aggro, I think it goes a long way. I don't know exactly what I'd take out. I mean, I know Eribos would come out. I'd say maybe 2 connections would, or the 4 thoughts, also 4 Thoughtseize would come out, maybe 2 connections. Um, I think that really can shore up that matchup quite a bit. So next few videos we test will probably be this deck, and I hope you enjoy it. Like I said, like I'm not gonna steal the credit from guys from Star City Games, but I did play a very similar list to what you're looking at right now for Game Day. Um, Even though I totally read my meta wrong. But like I said, if you got a lot of Esper, a lot of mono blue aggro, or whatever, if those decks are prevalent in your meta, this is the deck you want to build to beat them. Okay, because this deck slaughters those decks, and it's very easy to make. It's very cheap. Okay. Yeah, so I hope you learned something. If you have any opinions or advice, maybe I'm missing something here. You let me know. You comment and let me know what I can improve on this deck, especially. And yeah, we'll play test some games.